Hello again, friends, Romans, countrymen. Welcome inside the Three Crows Studios, Morristown, Tennessee. You once again are listening to two guys talking baseball. My name is Dallas Danger, and I'm joined, as always, by my best friend and colleague, easy for me to say this week, Brian Logan. Brian, how's it going over there?
It was a great week for baseball. It really, really was. You know, each week that you introduce me, it gets more convoluted and harder to say each time. I'm starting to get a complex.
Okay. What do you suggest we do about that?
Well, I suggest you get your lines right, kid. No, I don't know. I guess I should
enough.
stop being so sensitive.
I guess.
Yeah. So how was your week? Mine was great.
Yeah, I bet. So we're recording on the heels of a 3-game series at Dodger Stadium, and Brian's Chicago Cubs bested my Los Angeles Dodgers on Monday and Tuesday night, and the Dodgers avoided the sweep, and I hate that phrase, avoiding the sweep, by winning Game 3 last night in very exciting fashion.
Very exciting.
But we're going to get into all of it. So, Monday's game, going into it, I remember we talked off air about, because all you can really predict is based off of pitching matchups when you're going into a series.
Right.
And Monday was an interesting matchup because it was Walker Buehler going for the Dodgers and Kyle Hendricks going for the Cubs. And they have kind of similar things going on in that they are formerly really great pitchers who have not had great years. Now, Walker's is due more to the fact that he missed 2 years off of his second Tommy John surgery.
Right.
Hendricks is a little bit more performance-based and maybe losing a step as he
Matures.
gets a little older and is around a little bit longer. But I thought that, I mean, neither guy pitched that well, let's just be honest.
Right.
But they didn't really decide the game, and I think that's the best either the Cubs or the Dodgers could have asked out of either guy.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's, you wanted them to get out there with minimal damage, and there was damage, but it wasn't insurmountable on either end, and I thought they both did good. I thought they did as well as they could do given the circumstances. And
I think just looking at the whole series, I think the key, and we talked about this too off the air, the key was night 3, I tried really hard and I stayed up for the whole game.
Right.
Because Monday I fell asleep and then the Cubs scored like 6 runs or whatever and put it out of reach, like the very next inning. And then Tuesday night I fall asleep, and then the Dodgers decide they're just going to forget how to be humans, much less play baseball in the 8th inning, because that was one of the worst innings I've ever seen defensively. It was just a mess. Error after error, 4 unearned runs out of what should be 5 and probably at some point will be 5. There was a play for Freddie Freeman that got scored as a hit that's probably going to get turned into an error earlier in the game. But just sloppy baseball. And in the grand scheme of things, no big deal. Dodgers come out of this series with a 5-game lead in the division still, which is not insurmountable, but tough, especially the way the Dodgers have played. The Dodgers had won 9 straight series before this series, too. I mean, they had gone a month without losing a series.
we slayed the dragon.
Yeah, at a time when you needed to, because the Cubs are still in it, and while their chances are still slim, they are improving the longer the Cubs stay in it. So, kudos to Chicago and Craig Counsell and all the guys on the field, because these were 3 really important games for the Cubs, and they won 2 of them.
Well, I think about the second week of October, we'll really nail this thing down. If that all we need is about 14 more days than everybody else.
Right.
And we'll really bring it home.
Right.
I mean, we're peaking. We're heading that direction. Just, I don't know if we've got enough time left.
Well, it feels like this is a story with the Cubs year after year.
It is.
It's like we get this close to October and you're looking and going, wait, the Cubs still have a shot? and they're headed for maybe being like the last team or the first team out, I guess, the first team out again, and it's just like every year it's almost too little, too late for the Cubs at the end.
It is. I mean, it just they're a bipolar team. They can't decide, are they done or are they in it?
Right.
And we're talking about sometimes mid-game, but definitely midweek.
Right.
You know, like we're going to win a couple and we're going to do it. And then it's like a day later and you're like, well, our season's winding down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very strange, but it does seem like at least the last few years that's been the case with the Cubs. So game 2, a lot of positives for the Dodgers. Even in losing, you know, Yoshinobu Yamamoto looked like he never went on the injured list.
Right, he looked real good.
I mean, just the stuff. I mean, the first pitch he threw, he dotted a fastball, and I was like, okay, we're back.
Right,
you know,
right.
And he just, you know, he looked very good, very sharp. Had said that the day before, Clayton Kershaw had given him some curveball advice, and that curveball was working.
Yeah,
Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So, you know, really encouraging stuff there. You know, strikes out the side in the first inning, strikes out the first 4 batters he faces. Just looked like a guy that can be that game 1 starter in the postseason. Threw 59 pitches to get through 4 innings. So I think the prevailing thought now is that the next time out, we may see 70, 75 pitches. And if that's the case, he could be pretty built up. I mean, he could give us 6 innings by the time game 1 of the playoffs rolls around. And I think
I definitely see that.
Yeah. I think that's all. I mean, and that's a scenario where I think most people associated with the Dodgers, whether it be fans or even in the organization, are going 24 hours before that, we felt a lot worse about this rotation in October. That's an addition now that I think changes the landscape of the pitching plan, even in a best-of-5 series in the NLDS. So now we've got Flaherty, who's going to be one of those 2-3 top guys. We've got Yamamoto, who's probably the game 1 starter, if we're being honest. So if we can get Glasnow, I mean, even if we get Glasnow or Gavin Stone back at this point, I'm feeling really good about those first 3.
Right.
And the hope would be that by game 4, the series is pretty in hand. So whoever goes in that 4th game, whatever the plan is there, it's not somebody that you have to get 7 innings out of, or you have to get, 5, 6, scoreless innings out of. You can just put somebody out there to give you a shot to win. And then if it doesn't work out, you go to game 5 with a better starter,
Right.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's always interesting in October, but that was really encouraging. I also loved that Max Muncy homered off of Shota Imanaga, who is the real deal. Was red hot out of the gates this year as a rookie. Kind of got overshadowed by Paul Skeens when Paul Skeens came up,
right? And
he sort of took over that rookie pitcher, rookie of the year conversation in the National League. But Muncy hitting a home run off of not just any lefty, but a good lefty is really, really something that I think the Dodgers have been looking for out of Muncy, because historically, Max is really good against lefty-lefty. He's one of the better lefty-lefty hitters in the majors the last few years. But this year, it's not been the case.
Right.
And you want to be able to plug him into that lineup every day, regardless of who's pitching.
Yeah, you want him in there. You want him contributing, without a doubt. Or at least I would.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that was the thing, too, when he came back from his injury, and they were kind of slow playing him at first, not really putting him in there every day, giving him some rest against lefties. And there were those questions of like, is he a platoon guy now? And Dave Roberts kind of said he's our everyday third baseman.
Yeah.
Now there's going to be situations where they change the lineup or put somebody else in there based off of matchups, or maybe even pinch hit for him late in the game. If it's a lefty killer like Kike Hernandez, or something like that. But yeah, you want Max Muncy you want him taking as many at bats in the postseason as you.
Oh,
as
without
you
a
can.
doubt. Yeah, you want him in there and contributing. I mean, I know I already just said that, but I mean, I think the Dodgers, as stacked as they are, they want everybody in there
Of course.
because that's what they've been doing all year. If the right don't get you, the left one will,
Yeah.
and that's their bread and butter.
Right. And I think if we can keep guys like Muncy and Tommy Edman, who hit his first 2 home runs.
He played great this week.
Yeah, really good series. And looked good from both sides of the plate, which as a switch hitter, again, that's what you want, is somebody that can give you quality at bats on against lefties, against righties, whatever the case may be. And then Will Smith too has heated up lately. So you keep guys like that hot. You add that to Shohei, Mookie, Freddie. Teoscar gets going a little bit, which he looked good.
Yeah, I'm glad he came back. Didn't look like he was, hampered at all.
No, played really well. Couple of base hits, which is good. After missing a few games, but yeah, I think this lineup is gonna, potentially give teams a lot of headaches in October.
Yeah, absolutely. The Cubs play better on the road this year. Usually what gets them is their road record is terrible. Their home record's fine.
Right.
But this year it's the other way around because of the weather at Wrigley. And, a lot of people, well, okay, you're blaming it on the weather. Well, yeah, you can do that at Wrigley because when the wind blows in, you can't hit that ball out. There's some days that it doesn't matter who's hitting it. It's just not going out because the way the airstream works, the balls go up and funnel back in.
Right.
So it was good to see that they played last week. They struggled a little bit at home after they had played. Okay, so in weeks prior, away, they played really, really well. Then they came home and they struggled a little bit. When they get back and they go to L.A., everybody was wondering, well, what are they going to do? And they fit right back in there, right where they were. And that's a good sign. But it's not a good sign. Again, it's two sides of the coin. You got to win at home.
Right.
No, whether the weather is bad or not.
So the Cubs are currently 37-38 away from Wrigley Field, which is pretty good because your goal is usually 500 ball on the road. 38-33 at Wrigley. And like you said, I think without looking at it, from years past, that's a little down. I mean, that's over 500, but, the Cubs are a team that want to really dominate at Wrigley, and that, like the Dodgers, dominate at Dodger Stadium.
Absolutely.
Good team on the road, but man, they're hard to beat at home. And the atmosphere is, in both scenarios, the atmosphere has everything to do with that. Wrigley is a hard place to play, not just because of the rabid fan base. Even when the Cubs are not a good team, the fans are there. But man, it's a tricky the wind and the weather and just the specs of that ballpark. It's one of those places. It's kind of like Fenway. Guys that play there all the time have figured. I mean, even Yankee Stadium is kind of like that. Because Judge does so much damage at Yankee Stadium that we forget. I just saw something the other day where, there's this argument, and I'm getting off on a tangent, but that's okay. The AL MVP has been a bit of a conversation between Aaron Judge, who's just hitting home runs like it's nothing, and Bobby Witt Jr., who's playing a complete game of baseball.
Yeah, more rounded.
If Aaron Judge played all of his games in Kansas City, he would have 38 home runs this year. First off, that's way less than he's got.
Right.
So Yankee Stadium helps him out quite a bit. If Bobby Witt Jr. played all his games in Yankee Stadium, he would have 38 home runs. So when you balance it out with stuff like that, it almost makes it look closer than it does on paper.
Right.
And Wrigley is that type of place. Wrigley is the type of place that can take a really good hitter and turn him into not so much, and maybe take a guy who elsewhere is not that good, but at Wrigley he's really good.
Right.
So
well, the whole game plan is supposed to be for the Cubs to work. They need to hit the long ball with you when the wind's blowing out, so both teams are then competing on the same level. But when the wind starts blowing in, the Cubs have to switch to a small ball team. And that's where they do really well because other teams aren't used to that. And this lineup was perfect for that, with the lower half being small ball and the first half being the long ball for most of the season. But then it switched.
yeah.
So now it's backwards, and you got the winds all messed up, and it's just they're competing with some factors here that aren't normal everyday plans.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can say that. I mean, that sounds like I'm making excuses, but I mean, I don't know if you can say that about the other ballparks like that because of the way the wind is.
Yeah, it was funny. They mentioned on the Dodger broadcast that after that Yankees series at Wrigley, before they went on the road, that Craig Counsell got asked kind of like, well, hey, where'd the offense go? When y'all were on the road, you were scoring 10 runs a game. Mm-hmm. And Counsell just goes, dude, the wind was blowing straight in. Mm-hmm. Like the whole series, as if to say, like, if you don't know about Wrigley, you need to learn about Wrigley because nobody has offense when the wind at Wrigley is blowing straight in because the ball goes nowhere.
Well, and it's that funnel thing that happens where it, like, you can, for those that can see us on YouTube, it kind of goes up, which is like for a home run, but it'll teeter back.
Yeah.
And that's hard to catch.
Well, because that wind is just pushing it back down.
Yes.
Like there's so much resistance to balls in the air when that wind is pushing in, like I said, that it makes it a really tough place to play. And like you said, that's where manufacturing runs and small ball come into play. I mean, that's how you win ball games.
Yeah.
In that scenario. So, real quick on Game 2 from Tuesday night, Brusdar Graterol, a day earlier than expected, activated. Really encouraging to see because, he comes back after a lengthy rehab where it seemed like every time he threw, there was a setback, and it just was a tough rehab for him. Throws 8 pitches, and he's out of the game again, and it's like, man, that felt so heartbreaking.
Yeah. But
he's back. He didn't look great, but he put up a 0, and that's the job.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it ain't pretty.
And here's the thing. Now he's pitched twice, but he's thrown less than 30 pitches this season. Mm-hmm. So who knows what we're going to get out of him? But I'm glad he's healthy and he's getting an opportunity to get in good form and get ready for October, because I think our bullpen is at its best when he's in there.
Do you think pitchers, I mean, I'm just being silly, but it's never stopped me before. You think at the end of the year they're sitting there drinking their beer, having their steak, and they're like, yeah, man, I made $226 million and I only threw like 89 pitches.
No, but I bet Anthony Rendon sits on his porch and drinks his beer and says, I made X amount of $1 million and I only had to play 12 days.
Yeah. No, I believe that.
Because, fuck that guy.
Oh, man. He speaks highly of you.
I don't care. I don't like him.
All right.
You don't talk bad about the game of baseball like he has publicly and get to make millions of dollars and give your family the life that he gets to give them and act like, it's a chore.
Yeah.
Most of us would kill to be where he's at or have his level of talent, and have the opportunities he has. So, I'm glad he's stuck in Anaheim. So Game 3 of the series last night, Bobby Miller versus Jordan Wicks.
Yeah.
Is that his first name? Jordan.
Jordan
Wicks.
Jordan Wicks. It's not Jordan. It's a Yor.
Jordan Wicks.
But it looks like Jordan.
Which was another interesting one because Wicks's numbers are decent, but he's still young, figuring things out. Bobby Miller has been less than good. He has been pretty terrible. His ERA now is up to like 8 on the year, which is after the year he had last year is kind of hard to believe. But he's just, Bobby's just not making the adjustments on that fastball. They're getting to the fastball. He's used to being able to throw 99 past people, and he's in the big leagues now, and they can catch up to 99.
Yeah.
But he gives up 2 in the top of the first, and I'm kind of thinking, here we go again. And then the bottom of the first happens. And for the first time in Dodger franchise history, they hit 4 home runs in the first inning. Shohei leads it off. And then I think Mookie and Freddie both got out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Teoscar singles. Edman homers. Mm-hmm. That gives him the lead. His third home run in 2 games, or like in a game and a bat. And then Will Smith homers. All right, now it's getting interesting. Then Max Muncy homers.
Yeah.
They go back to back to back, and all of a sudden it's a different ball game. Mm-hmm. And it's 5-2 at that point.
And it lit a fire under both teams too.
I think you're right.
They were like, "Oh, we're going to play a nice, friendly game." Then they're like, "Oh, intense," and then they're like, "Ooh, we better play."
Right. And then, eventually it ends up 7-7, which was like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Blew it 2 nights in a row. But then the Dodgers stepped up, scored some more runs. Mm-hmm. Shohei got a stolen base.
Yep.
So now we're 47 home runs, 48 stolen bases. He's getting real close to that 50-50 number.
Oh, yeah. He's going to do it.
I'm not as certain as you are, but I feel better about it now.
He's only got to do 3 and 2.
Yeah.
He can do that.
In like 16 games, I think they have left.
He could get hot and do that in 1 game.
Well, he could. It's true.
Unlikely he will.
But it's, he's getting really, really stinking close. So, so that's cool to see. It's been either way, it's been a very special first season for Shohei with the Dodgers. And the Dodgers pull that one out last night, despite a couple of hiccups. But again, a lot of positives.
It was a great game.
Yeah, I thought so too. It was a really good game to watch. My brother Darren was at the game.
Yeah, we love Darren.
Yeah, so that was cool to see. He got to go up and hang out with his buddy Steven Nelson up in the booth, and he got me a Max Muncy bobblehead.
Yay!
So that might find its way into the studio at some point.
Hopefully, when we get our cabinet for everything.
Yeah, we will at some point be getting a shelf specifically for bobbleheads for our studio.
Yep. And Max Muncy will be great addition to that.
He sure will. We got Rocky the Bat Dog for sure.
Yep.
You've got a nice Christopher Morel from the Smokies.
I do. He needs to be brought upstairs.
Absolutely. And I got a few at the house. I'm going to figure out what I'm bringing, once we get to that point. But so, Brian, now that we've kind of done a deep dive into this series, and you have bragging rights, unless something happens and y'all getting in the playoffs and our teams meet in October.
That's it for the year.
You got bragging rights till we go to Japan.
I know. And I found it was weird because where I watch the Dodgers every day now, they're like my number 2 team, but I watch them every day. So it's not a tie for number 1. Trust me.
Of course not.
But it's in my heart now.
Yeah.
I'm a big Dodger fan, a bigger Cub fan, but I realized the Dodgers needed to win, but we also needed to win, and it was so I wasn't as fixated on the winner or loser of the game. I started getting into the individual story.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, this is Shohei's got to hit a home run. He's got to get a stolen base. He's got to do this. We got to see what Pete Crow Armstrong's going to do.
And man, Pete Crow Armstrong, who we've not brought up at any point here, is
incredible.
He's playing on a different level than everybody else right now, it feels like.
Well, I watched a lot of him at the Smokies a few years back, and he was outplaying them. He was ready to go way before they brought him up. I saw him get his minor league Golden Glove, and I couldn't believe how little he is.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh my gosh, he's a kid, like a little kid.
And at that point, he was even younger. That was a few years ago.
Yeah. So he's he's a grown ass man, but,
Right.
But he's just, that's why he's so good though, and why he's so fast. So I love watching him. Hap quietly, move the team along.
Yeah.
I was still waiting for Paredes to smile. He played great.
Yeah, he had some great plays at third base after you said you needed to be replaced there last week.
Well, I mean, he fits in for the Cubs. I mean, one way, one week and another. But I just wish he would smile.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what that's about. Let's send him some flowers. Dear sir, we're behind you 110%, unless you don't fucking smile. And at that point, you're out of here, brother.
Yeah, he's a pretty serious looking guy.
He's very serious, very intense. It's not even resting asshole face. He looks mad. He's Serrano from Major League. He's always mad at something.
Yeah. So coming out of this series, Cubs win the series 2-1 as we have.
And by the way, I am going to gloat. We did beat you.
I know.
I didn't leave that out. We got you.
No, you won.
We did. And I mean, it's because you fell asleep.
And earned it. Yeah, and it's my fault. It's all my fault, Dodger fans.
It's complete your fault.
I'll take the blame for that.
Yeah, send your tweets to @DallasDanger on how he caused the team to lose.
It's funny. In 2020, the shortened season, I watched every game. I didn't miss a game that year, and there was one series with the Dodgers lost one series that whole year. And it was in the regular season, obviously. And it was against the Rockies. And I remember I watched like 2 games of that series from my parents' house.
Okay.
And I tweeted that out. I was like, hey, this is weird, right? And other Dodger fans were like, don't do that anymore. Don't watch games at her house again.
Go home. Go back to your place.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, they're making a valid point.
It's a written law that if you get up to go to the bathroom and your player hits a home run, you now have to watch the rest of the season from the bathroom. That happened with Hap a few years ago, and I thought I was about to be stuck in the bath. I think he hit a grand slam like 4 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And Ashley's like, oh, you got to stay in there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a TV. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to listen to the whole season. And I was like, can I even turn the bedroom TV on? She's like, no. No, nothing can change. I'm like, oh my God. She discovered Edmund, though. She was like, who the hell is this guy? And I was like, oh yeah, he's fantastic, and he's new, and she was impressed with him.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure y'all have seen Edmund in the past, from his time with the Cardinals.
Well, she hasn't.
Sure, fair enough.
I mean, new to the Dodgers.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, he's been a great addition, and the funny thing is, in the same trade, we got a guy who has like a 0.5 ERA since he came to the Dodgers, and Michael Kopech, and we basically gave up Miguel Vargas.
Yeah.
So Andrew Friedman at it again with that great deal. So coming out of this. Now, Brian, the Cubs, with 16 games left to play, are 5 games out of a wild card spot.
Right.
Still have to leapfrog 2 teams.
Ooh.
And, while it's doable, three of the 4 teams in front of the Cubs are like the 3 hottest teams since the end of May.
I know. That's why we need the extra 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be really tough. I mean, even if we buckle down, and I mean, I don't know how, if we play better. I mean, how can we play any better than we're doing? I mean, we're playing our hearts out over there. It's going to be tough.
Yeah,
it's going to be real tough. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it, but I'm realistic about it.
Well, I personally hope that the Diamondbacks and the Padres both completely collapse, and that the Mets, Braves, and Cubs get the 3 wild card spots. That's my rooting interest in the wild card standings right now. But the Cubs are a good ball club, and even if they don't squeak in this year, Jed Hoyer's got something to build around now.
If he will.
What are they going to do? We've already talked about, here's the thing. If they're gonna if they're going to be over the luxury tax either way with Bellinger, why not spend a little more?
Exactly.
Why not spend a little more? You know, you can keep yourself under the next luxury tax threshold, right? But try, you know. And I did see the Cubs mentioned in a tweet about the teams that are apparently are interested in making a call on Juan Soto. You know, and I mean, Juan Soto makes the Cubs a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't know how realistic that is. They'd have to compete money-wise with the big dogs, you know, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets.
Then we're going to have to get rid of somebody. We're going to have to figure out where to place them. You know,
Yeah.
That's, you know, we've got, you know, too many in too many places.
Yeah.
So, but that's a good problem to have.
Right.
You know.
Well, here's the thing. Your outfield as it stands right now is Bellinger in right, PCA in center, Suzuki in left, you know, most of the time. Bellinger can play first base, and I know Michael Busch has, you know, bullied his way into that spot most of the time, and that's good.
And he's playing great.
Yeah, phenomenal ball player. Probably going to be a Cub for a while, I would think. He looks like a foundational guy for them, maybe moving
built
forward.
for the team, right attitude, right playing stats, right money wise.
Yeah. And any of those guys can DH.
Yeah.
So I don't think Juan Soto takes any of those spots on the roster, but you just got to find a way to get those guys in the lineup every day.
Right.
And that's something that good teams are faced with that every day, all season.
Right.
You know, I mean, the Dodgers have had such a roster crunch this year, you know, and have had to let guys like Jason Hayward go.
Right, because they couldn't find a place.
Just because you know, it's performance based, and if there's not a spot for you, then the guys who are performing have to get those spots.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
you know, we'll see. You know, I mean, the Cubs season isn't over. You know, they're still in it.
I mean, and they're keeping us entertained through the whole season. I would rather have it like this, of course. I'd rather have it as playing like you guys, but I'd rather have it, you know, us playing like this versus it's the All-Star game and we're out.
Yeah.
There's no hope.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not even going to try.
Yeah. And you know, from a Dodgers standpoint, leading the division is 5 games. We're pretty clear of the Diamondbacks at this point. You know, we beat that. We won that series with them, which was, I think, most important because we got the tiebreaker back from them. So, you know, we're looking at, you know, 6 games for them.
Okay.
The Padres are going to be the tricky one because we still have to play them 3 times. And they have played us really well, not just this year, but the last handful of years. So, and they're hungry. When they play the Dodgers, they're a hungry ball club.
Always.
Yeah. So, and the Dodgers have, to their credit, have been really good against good teams this year. I'm actually going to look that up right now since I got the standings.
All right. They have played well against good teams, and that's one of their you know, hallmarks for this season.
47-38 against teams above 500.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good.
Yes, it is.
Padres are 45-40 in those same scenarios. Everybody else in the division has a losing record against against, you know, 500 above 500 teams. So, you know, I like that we got Yamamoto back, and he looks like he's just in cruise control. That's huge.
That's a huge sign.
Yeah, big difference in the rotation and how we're going to be starting things off in October. Graterol back is important. Teo only missing a handful of games after what looked like a season destroyer when he got hit in the foot.
Yeah, when we talked right after that happened, you were not in a good place.
Well, because that's one player on this Dodger team isn't going to make all the difference, but from an intangible standpoint, we need him.
Oh yeah, I agree.
He's got to be in that lineup. He's got to be out there, you know, because here's the thing. even if Teoscar Hernandez does not come up with any big hits in October, which I don't think is even plausible to talk about, like he's going to have a big moment.
Right.
But even if he doesn't, him looming in that lineup and the potential and the possibility of him coming up in a big situation changes the game.
Right.
You know, maybe at a low level some days, but it definitely changes the lineup.
Right. I mean, and this is going to sound silly, but bear with me. Who's going to throw the sunflower seeds at Ohtani?
Well,
and that's important because that's part of the whole ritual.
Right. Well, there have been situations where he's been on base.
Okay.
And others have filled in.
Okay.
But yeah, I think you want him, you got to have him around.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, the sunflower seeds is a big part of this team's camaraderie and the fact that, you know, and he actually said this in as many words the other day that when he went to the Dodgers, he felt like they weren't having enough fun.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm a fun guy. I like to have fun while we win. So we're going to have fun now. Mm-hmm. And this has been a looser, lighter team.
It has.
Than we've seen in years past with the Dodgers. And that's, you know, as a fan, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, because if your team's having fun, you're going to have fun.
Of course.
You know?
Well, that's the whole thing with the Cubs is the lovable losers and why, you know, Isak is not fitting in is you gotta there's a certain camaraderie you gotta have here because there's going to be some weeks where we don't win some games.
Yep.
And he's not getting in with that, and that's important to the culture of the teams.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you got to have that. So Teo coming back is big. You know, a lot of positives the last 3 days, you know. Unless something goes horribly wrong, and then we've got bigger fish to fry, so to speak, in October. Walker Buehler not going to be making an October start.
Yeah.
Bobby Miller, even less likely that we see him on that mound in October. You know, I could see Walker has pitched good enough to earn an opportunity to play out of the bullpen a little bit. You know, maybe as like a piggyback option with somebody. Maybe Glasnow comes back, but it's too late to get him really built up. Mm-hmm. So you want to piggyback him with somebody that can have some innings after. Mm-hmm. You know, I could see that scenario. You know, there's just a lot to be decided on the roster makeup for the Dodgers in the postseason. You know, Glasnow, Gavin Stone, Clayton Kershaw, all still on the IL, all still trying to make their way back. And I think all three of those guys, if they get healthy, will have a role on this team in October.
Yeah.
So, you know, if all goes well with those rehabs, you know, we got a traffic jam of pitching, and that's what we wanted. And that's what we were all, us, you know, being Dodger fans, at the beginning of the year were salivating over when we saw the entirety of this roster and all the possibility. And now with a couple exceptions, it looks like we're going to be pretty full health. Mm-hmm. Man, I still feel like the Dodgers are a tough out in October.
They are, without a doubt. I mean, they're playing the best ball. I mean, it's all gonna come together and peak at the right time for them.
I hope so, because you know, this has been such a special run for the Dodgers the last decade or so, and it feels like it gets better every day, every year.
Yeah.
But the Dodgers have now set themselves up for the next decade or so. When you look at the contracts for Shohei and Yamamoto and Mookie, and now Will Smith is locked up for 10 years. Mm-hmm. We've got Freddie for like 3 more years. We've got Glasnow for 5. There is a window here where I feel like for this to be looked at historically as a success, we got to get, bare minimum 1.
Yeah.
And I think that is an organizational failure. 2 or 3 is probably what it's going to take for this next 10 years to really be looked back on the way that it should be. Because this is trust me, been a Dodger fan for a long time. And I used to not mind that I couldn't watch them that often because they weren't that good for a lot of my life.
Right.
And then the McCourt ownership years were, abysmal. You know, to have a team in a market like Los Angeles with a stadium like Dodger Stadium, and you can't go out and get big name free agents or anything like that. You know, it's but the Guggenheim Group and this new ownership has you know, their goal obviously was to put the Dodgers where they belong, because the Dodgers are one of the classic franchises in Major League Baseball. And even if the team on the field is not, you know, a dominant championship contending team, they need to be competitive, you know, because that's what to me is owed to this fan base, because this is a phenomenal fan base.
Yeah.
I mean, we go on the road against bad teams and it sounds like a home game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is a fan base that is nationwide. It travels well, you know, and I think, you know, there's enough people in this fan base, and I'm not one of them, let me make that abundantly clear, but there's enough people in the Dodger fan base that buy into the idea that the 2020 World Series should mean something different than any other year, that I think this fan base is really, really hungry for another championship. Even if that's just because we didn't get the parade, the last one. I don't know, man. It's going to be, we got like 2 weeks left, basically.
You know who throws a good parade?
Who throws a good parade?
San Diego.
Yeah.
They ought to write a book about parades.
Yeah, they're the parade kings as long as you don't have to earn one.
Right.
All right. So I think that you got anything else you want to say on the Cubbies or the Dodgers today, Brian?
Well, I feel that it was billed as two teams for the ages. What we had was two great good guys versus bad guys scenario, and I believe the good guys won 2 out of 3. That's all I got to say about that.
You're stealing my gimmick. I call the Dodgers the good guys every day.
I know you do. That's why I did that.
All right, so we're going to move on to a couple of other topics. The next one, a little somber. Anytime you're talking about death, it is somber. But we lost James Earl Jones at the age of 93. And, you know, obviously, I mean, goes without saying, one of the most iconic voices we've ever recorded in the history of recorded anything. He was the voice of Darth Vader. He was the voice of Mufasa in The Lion King, which when I was a kid was like the biggest movie in the world for a while. You know, I mean, everybody was about The Lion King when I was growing up. You know, Coming to America is another classic one. But, you know, a lot of people like to talk about the Kevin Costner baseball trilogy, which of course is Bull Durham, For Love of the Game, and Field of Dreams. But the James Earl Jones baseball trilogy doesn't get talked about as much as it should. When you look at The Sandlot, Bingo Long, and Brain Fart, Field of Dreams as well.
Yes.
Terrence Mann in Field of Dreams. And so, Brian, you know, just... you know, a guy that for both of us, and Brian, for those that don't know, is just a little bit older than I am, but for both of us, iconic doesn't even begin to touch James Earl Jones.
Well, I mean, for me, my first love was Star Wars. Seeing it in the theater when it came out in 1978. I've literally been around his voice my entire life as far as being cognate to realize what's going on. And so many of his movies I love. You know, Bingo Long is he's great in that, and that's not a lot of people know about that movie.
Right. We're at some point gonna talk about that movie, most likely on Patreon. Who knows, man? The off season's gonna get weird. We might talk about it on the regular podcast feed.
Yeah.
But here, so I've got a transcript here of a Q&A that James Earl Jones did at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown in 2004 when they were celebrating the 15-year anniversary of the film Field of Dreams.
Okay.
That, again, he iconically played Terrence Mann, an author, and, you know, the long speech, the monologue, when he finally sees it, you know, he sees the ghost players and I mean, just one of the greatest scenes in a movie, baseball or otherwise, ever.
Absolutely.
But Bingo Long's Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings, I want to read some of these answers he gave during this Q&A, because obviously he was super well-spoken and had a lot of really profound things to say. But he was asked his thoughts when they were making Bingo Long. And he said, "We made it a comedy. All the liberal critics and all the black critics said, how dare you take that kind of money and that kind of platform and not tell the tragedy of those players. And indeed, there was tragedy, but we chose to make it a comedy and suffered for it with the reviews and the reception it received. But it's still a movie that people respect. I'm glad we did it as a comedy because I think sense of humor is a sign of intelligence."
Yeah.
And here's the thing. When I watched Bingo Long for the first time, I didn't think they laughed around the darkness of the Negro Leagues.
Right.
Or that era.
I don't think that either.
You know, they addressed it. But, you know, I always go back to this. When you talk about the black players from that time period, whether they were in, you know, affiliated Negro League games, or they were like Bingo Long's Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings and were like a travel team.
Yeah, barnstorming.
They played 3-4 games a day because the only place they felt safe was on the field.
Right.
So, of course, they're having fun, and of course they're laughing because they're escaping the realities of the world because they're good at ball. So, yeah, I think I agree that it was the right move to make it a funny movie and a comedy.
I think that they showed that the guys had to use their sense of humor to make up for what they were going through, because you can't just sit there and cry.
Right.
So let's at least laugh at it.
Right.
And it showed that they were actually stronger because they were having fun when it could have been much, much worse.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. And I think that, you know, those types of individuals were very well represented in that film. Excuse me, I thought. But I'm just a white guy who was born in 1985, so what do I know?
Right. Classic movie, though.
Yeah, and again, we're going to talk about that because Brian and I share a love for that film. Brian actually introduced me to it. I had never even heard of it until Brian told me about it. And don't at me. I don't watch movies. You know, I'm not a movie guy. So, you know, I don't care. At me. I'll just ignore you. It's fine. Anyways, but you know, his other baseball roles too. You know, The Sandlot is huge because you know, he's this, like, you don't see him. He's just like this looming thing, kind of, you know. I mean, I guess you see him, but you don't see the real him until they hit the ball over there and they have to go retrieve it and they get past the dog and you know, then finally they walk in and it's like they're in a museum of baseball in his house, and you know, it's just like a great moment, and he played it so well because he had that ability, I guess, is the correct way to put it, where he would seem like this looming. Yeah, I mean, he was the antagonist in what was the Schwarzenegger movie he was in? Was it Conan?
Yes. Oh yeah, Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Yes, he was the villain.
Yeah, he was the villain. So he's got this this aura where he can look really menacing and intimidating. But as soon as he starts talking, he can get jovial and flip that switch. You know, that seems like no big deal, but there aren't a lot of actors.
Well, that was the
do
thing in The Sandlot is they're so terrified, and they're kids, you know, and their whole life is this whole deal, and they have to go in there. So it's a coming of age, you know, foreshadowing what's going to happen in the film, and they get in there and they're like, oh, he's one of us.
Yeah.
So not only do you have the foreshadowing of they have to become men, they have to grow up, but then they see themselves later.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, so really good stuff. And, you know, I think, because there was a mention in this article too that he did some stage shows about baseball earlier in his career. But his thoughts on baseball are really wonderful and profound. So later in this Q&A, he was asked, "You said in the past that, quote, baseball is Zen," end quote. and he was asked to explain. And he said, I wouldn't say baseball is mundane, but it's ordinary by intention, unlike the sport of boxing, which is kind of gladiatorial, or football, which has its grace, ballet, and great brute force. I took my son, who is now 21, to his first baseball game in Anaheim. It was a summer day, of course, and what he liked about it was he could sit there and watch the airplanes and watch the birds and not miss a thing. That's how in the groove of life baseball is.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I've never heard it put more profoundly or more succinctly.
Yeah, I mean, the game of baseball and the experience of going out to a park can be anything to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we took a friend of ours, and he had never watched baseball, never went to the ballpark. He just wanted to be with us. And he loved it. He didn't care about the game.
Right.
But he loved being with us. Meanwhile, me and you are watching the game, and we're all excited about the game, and we're happy we're all together, but we're watching the sport.
Yeah.
So baseball can mean so many different things at so many different times, and then turn on a dime and still mean something else. Mm-hmm. And that's what's great about it. And it's something you can doze off for a second.
Yeah.
Your mind can wander and you can come back. You know, it's not thoughtless because there's a lot of thought in it, but it's something where you can think about it, and then you get exhausted for a second and you look at a bird or an airplane.
Right.
And you come right back and you're right back in it.
Yeah.
And you haven't really missed a whole big thing.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. The pace of the game, again, and the pace of life match up so well, and that's what made it the pastime. Mm-hmm. Going to see a game. Yeah, whether you're one who wants to keep score or watch the game itself very closely, or you just want to go have a hot dog and a beer and hang out with everybody and feel the energy, or anywhere in between, and the live baseball experience in modern days is the game is almost secondary now.
Yeah.
It's a live event with, games and music and, bright colored lights on the video screens. And I mean, minor league teams have video screens now. So it's a whole immersive experience, built around this simple child's game that we've all played at some point in our life.
Right.
So we all have a frame of reference, to baseball.
And it's different from, say, basketball and football. Say you're at a game, you got to go to the bathroom, you got to go smoke, you got to go get you 14 hot dogs. You can't do that in basketball because you'll miss the whole thing.
Yeah.
Football, something could happen and it never recover. Where baseball can always recover.
The problem with football is if you get up at the wrong time, somebody's liable to beat you up and mug you in the stadium.
Wow, where are you watching games?
I've been to an NFL game.
Oh, okay.
And there were times I felt unsafe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's hostile. It's violent. It's just, it's the cathedral. It's the Roman cathedral, dude. Mm-hmm. It's blood sport. It's wild. And that's okay. People can like football. I don't care, I just don't.
Right.
It's just not for me. I like to consider myself a pretty laid back guy, so I like a laid back pastime.
Right.
Right. I also, and for me, football is too serious because they only play 17 games, so every game matters so much. Baseball, it's like you play 162, you can lose a couple, and it's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to get all bent out of shape over every loss.
There's always tomorrow.
Yeah, it's just
always next season.
Yeah, it's just it just grooves with me a lot better.
Yeah, it grooves with me too.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, and I mentioned this because I've got a big plan for next year of there's nothing like grilling and drinking beer and watching it on a giant screen outside on your porch.
Yeah.
That's going to be great. And that's just, there's nothing more American than that.
No, not really.
Not
really.
Maybe fireworks, we try to blow up the neiver's house or something.
I don't like fireworks.
Okay, well then fine. We won't do that.
You don't like fireworks
I don't either,
pal.
I like sparklers. Just stand there with the sparklers. Sparkler dogs.
Sparkler dogs.
I got you.
You did get me. Oh, nice little inside joke there.
Red, white, and blue cheese.
Yeah, red, white, and blue cheese and sparkler dogs. They got chicken.
He's got a keg. They're going nuclear.
They're going nuclear. Sorry if you have no idea what we're talking about. So the last question in this Q&A, and I loved this story because I don't think I had ever read this or heard this anywhere. James Earl Jones gets asked what inspired him to do Field of Dreams.
Okay.
And his answer was, the script arrived at my house before I got home. My wife read it, and when I got home, she said, honey, you will do this script. It's not that I do everything my wife says. She said, it's a great script. The long speech about baseball will not appear in the movie, of course, but you must do it anyways. And of course, the long speech did make it into the film, and I own a T-shirt with the entire, every word of it on the back. Yeah. Like it's as iconic as the day is long. Baseball has marked the time, and it's just man. Somewhere there's a video of Vin Scully reading that, and it's like the most soothing ASMR baseball thing you could ever imagine. Vin reading those words.
Yeah,
it's just incredible. I also saw yesterday Vin, the first game after 9/11.
Yeah,
or the day of 9/11, whatever it was, and that was just moving and gives you goosebumps, and that's the type of voice and that's the type of actor James Earl Jones was. He's the type of guy that when you think about his most iconic movies, his most iconic scenes, it gives you chills thinking about it because there's so many great memories wrapped up. I mean, for me, growing up and watching The Sandlot and showing my partner Jen the movie Field of Dreams for the first time and how emotional she got, the first time she saw it. And there's, and then watching Bingo Long for the first time with you and being like, man, how have I never seen this movie? I want to watch it over and over now, I mean, Richard Pryor and Billy D. Williams and, James Earl Jones.
Everybody was in it.
Yeah, it was a great flick. So
couldn't make that movie today. And not because of the PC culture, just there's not enough stars. There's not enough star power like was in that movie. Even if they weren't big stars at the time of the movie, they became big stars later.
Sure.
And you can't duplicate that.
Well, if you did it today, like Kevin Hart would be in it.
Right.
And that just changes the whole movie. Because he's a slapstick comedian. And sure, Richard Pryor was a little slapstick, but there was some highbrow humor in Richard Pryor's game, intelligent comedian, and I don't know, just a really great flick that I'm glad we watched together. We'll watch it again soon and talk about it here on Patreon, like I said. And
before we move on, though, with James Earl Jones, The Great White Hope. He plays the villain. Not Great White Hype, which is a great movie, which is a spoof of that movie, which I love both of them, and watching them back to back is amazing.
Yeah.
But it's a boxing movie, and it's incredible. I mean, he just really nails that role. So he was just iconic almost in everything because, I mean, he's the voice of CNN.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just, and to think that, like, for me, watching him in Star Wars, and that's the first place that I had became familiar with him. It was just his voice.
Yeah,
he wasn't the guy in the suit.
Yeah,
that was Dave Prosay, and he was so bad they wouldn't let him talk. I mean, it was a big deal. He sued them and all this.
Right,
but Darth Vader, as we commonly think of him, is not the guy. It's just his voice.
Just the voice, yep.
That's it. And you can't have Darth Vader without the voice.
Yep.
I mean, the voice synthesizers now in the movies are made to sound like him.
Yep.
So that's amazing.
It's something else, man. And yeah, again, we've used the word iconic a lot. And like I said earlier, I don't think it even quite does the man justice.
No.
But rest easy and Godspeed to James Earl Jones.
Absolutely.
Someone that I don't think will ever be forgotten. Because his characters are going to live on forever.
Forever. At least in this household.
All right, so we're winding things down a little bit for the week, but I wanted to quickly mention Bowden Francis, a young rookie star. I think he's a rookie starter. Yeah, because I think he's only had like 11 career starts.
Yeah.
For the Toronto Blue Jays. For the second time in his first 11 starts, which is remarkable to begin with. Yesterday, he takes a no-hit bid into the ninth inning, and it's broken up by a leadoff home run. That's the second time already that's happened to him. It happened on August 24th against the Angels. I actually watched the last couple innings of this game.
Okay.
Taylor Ward hit the leadoff home run in the ninth. And then yesterday, which was September 11th, against the Mets, Francisco Lindor hits the leadoff home run in the ninth to break up the no-hitter. And then the Mets go on to score 6 runs in the ninth. It's the most runs that have ever been scored by a team that got no-hit through 8.
Yeah.
So
a lot going on there in that game.
A lot. And I think it's like it's a microcosm of the last few years for the Blue Jays because there's been some excitement surrounding some young players and some, maybe not as young players now, like, guys like Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette that have been there for, a few years.
Yeah.
But, man, it's just been a tough year for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Really tough year for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah. They did pretty well in Atlanta, which we needed. They helped us out there at least one night I know of.
Yeah.
So that was I think it was 2. Don't quote me on that.
Right.
But yeah, they it's been a long season for them.
Yeah, yeah. And a couple years ago, they were a team you could foresee making long playoff runs in the American League. You know, and now they're the latest team to have an off year in that crazy American League East.
Yeah. And
just dip down in the standings because everybody else in that division is winning ball games, basically. I mean,
what's the attendance in that league? 4? I mean,
what are you talking about?
The attendance on the East teams in the American League, that's where all those teams that can't draw are in, isn't it?
Well,
like the Devil Rays.
I think the Yankees. I think the Yankees do pretty good.
Well, of course they do.
I think Baltimore's probably doing pretty good. Boston. I mean, that's a place people want to go see a game. Tampa Bay. Yeah.
Once they get that new stadium, it will be.
I hope so. Because I'm glad they're staying. In St. Petersburg. As much as it would have been cool for them to move to Montreal and become the Expos, I'm glad the Rays are sticking where they are.
Yeah, but then when we go to make our stadium run, we got to go to Montreal.
Okay.
And it's so different up there and cold and the wind and everything. Suddenly I'm the football guy in the tundra up there. And it's summer, too. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I don't want to go to Montreal.
Well, we don't have to go to Montreal, pal.
I ain't doing it. I just ain't doing it.
All right. Well, Brian's not going to Montreal.
Yeah.
I don't know why that matters in this conversation, but he's just not going to do it.
I ain't doing it.
I've seen a game in Toronto.
Oh, that's cool. We'll go to Toronto.
My first major league game was actually at the Sky Dome in Toronto.
Yeah, you told me that. That was pretty. That was pretty cool.
It was a neat experience. You
Yeah,
know, being a hayseed kid from Virginia that had never really been far out of my own hometown to go to a city the size of Toronto and
wander into a baseball game.
Well, it was just it was a lot of fun and it was a good game. I got to see the Angels the year they won the World Series, the Rally Monkey year, which was cool. Got to see Roy Halladay pitch in person, which I cherish, especially after everything he accomplished later in Philadelphia and then his tragic passing. But the coolest thing for me, because I was like 16 or 17, and it was a beautiful day, so the roof was open for the whole game.
Okay.
Well, we didn't stick around. They were doing like an old timers day game or something. And we didn't stick around. My parents had us somewhere else to be or didn't want to stick around or whatever. So we're walking out. And as we're walking out, the roof is closing.
Okay.
And again, being a kid from small town Virginia who had never really been that far out of my hometown, to see something that massive move like that, I had never experienced anything close to it at that point. So, that, like, I can still see that. I can still see that moment, It really stuck with me.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds cool.
But Bowden Francis looks like, potentially got a good career ahead of him.
We got to have to keep our eyes on him.
Yeah, for sure. Great baseball name, too. Bowden Francis.
I know, that is a great name.
Yeah.
Francis.
I mean, you basically, with a name like Bowden Francis, you're going to be a nobody or you're going to play baseball.
Lighten up, Francis.
But don't call her Frankie. She hates that.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Have we done our time this? Have we done our
Yes,
our time this
we
week?
are good. Before we go, though,
Yes, please.
on a personal note, my mother, who listens to this every week and has no knowledge of baseball whatsoever, so she literally listens to hear us have a conversation, has been under the weather and in the hospital. She's out now, but she's still sick. We just want to wish you that you feel better, and we love you.
Yes, Kathy, we love you very much, and we hope you are feeling much better very soon. And thank you for listening to us babble on.
When you have no idea what the hell we're saying.
And I apologize for swearing. I just can't. Can't.
She gets hot at you over that.
I just can't help myself. I do apologize. I've tried to be better. I've tried to be better specifically for Kathy.
Yeah.
But when Anthony Rendon comes up or the Padres come up, it's
just natural.
it just flies out.
It happens.
I got no filter. What can I say?
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, be sure to follow us on the socials. Twitter is probably the easiest way. The show is at 2GTB Pod. I am at Dallas Danger. Brian is at 3 Crows Bry. And you can head to 2gtb.com now. Then get links to all of that stuff, links to the YouTube, links to wherever you listen to podcasts, links to our store. If you want to go directly to the store, that is 2gtb.store. We got a little something for everybody over there, and it's free to take a look. Patreon.com/2GTB. We've done some cool stuff and are going to continue to add to that. You can hear our original 11 episodes from 2022, which, by the way, we just hit our 11th episode in the current run.
Right.
This is episode 22 overall. So
yes.
So that's cool. We've gotten to where we were.
We're back to where we were.
Yeah. So we're feeling pretty good about that.
Of all the places we went, here we are still.
Yeah. This is a place we've been. So and if you're on the YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're not on the YouTube, please subscribe anyways. We're again trying to do some things with the YouTube channel that we've got to get a higher subscriber count to do.
Imagine live from the backyard watching and grilling with sparkler dogs. Oh, yeah, you could make that happen, people.
Yeah, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you could help make that a reality. And I got a feeling at some point it's going to be. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It sells itself.
I mean, yeah. Who doesn't want to watch a live video of us on your porch?
If we did it in Speedos with an eagle and an American flag, they'd make a movie out of it.
And on that note, thanks for listening once again. We will see you in 7 days. For Brian, I'm Dallas.
We'll see you at the ballpark.